Now let's turn our attention outside the conference to protests that have been happening on the streets of London and elsewhere. As always, eco-protesters putting their tuppence worth in. They have been occupying London bridges over the weekend, lying down in the middle of the road. We've seen that many times before. The Metropolitan Police ended up arresting 31 protesters after they paralysed the city on the second day of a planned month-long campaign of mayhem. Members of the group Just Stop Oil occupied 4 bridges in the capital. We also saw Maddie Budd, a former medical student, thank God no longer training to be a doctor, pouring what she said was human excrement on a memorial to Captain Sir Tom Moore, who became a national hero, of course, during the pandemic. If you're watching, you can see the pictures right now, claiming that basically she was going to pour human excrement over the statue every single day until we ended the private jet use in this country. But there we are. Not entirely sure that it's the biggest issue going on in life, but let's talk to Kai. He's spokesman for End UK Private Jets and joins us now. Good morning to you, Kai.
Morning.
Good morning. I mean, some people might recognise you as the person who set his arm on fire at the Laver Cup last month, just when we saw Roger Federer play his final matches there. Can you tell me why you feel so strongly about private jets? Because my only opinion on private jets is I'd like one.
It's fair enough that you'd like one because they're very convenient. The situation is that we need to start cutting emissions, and you know, the government talks about solar panels and electric cars, but there's not much point doing stuff like that if they're not even going to cut private jets. So yeah.
So your concern is private jets as opposed to big airliners. It's rich people getting their own jets and the amount of emissions that come from those flights carrying just a handful of people. That's your concern, rather than big jets. Or do you want us all to stop getting planes?
Well, I mean, there's lots of things to talk about there because, you know, some people sort of need planes to get to some places because you can't get to them via boat and stuff. But,
like environmental conferences. I mean, how are people going to get to COP27 if they don't go by plane, eh?
Yeah, and so it's a bit of a tricky one. You know, it's like trying to solve where we get our energy from. It's so tricky, but you know, we don't need. Well, yeah, because people, you know, we have such a high energy consumption right here, and we can't really replace it. But the point is that cutting private jets is easy. You know, no one's going to complain about that because the working class don't depend on it and that sort of thing.
I would have thought the owners of private jets and the renters of private jets would definitely complain. I would if I had one. Why shouldn't people get private jets if they want to?
Well, I just think, and you know, you've seen what the protest Maddie did. It's basically just saying that, you know, adults and sort of a lot of people have been sitting in comfort whilst everyone sort of knows that my generation's future is going to be sort of ruined, and I don't think that level of comfort's okay, and it's still going on. So yeah.
Sorry. Okay, so your generation's future is going to be ruined because some very rich people are getting private jets.
Well, we're talking about carbon emissions, so it means cars and power plants and all sorts. But the worst offender is private jets.
Have you ever been on a private jet?
Not yet.
Not yet. Are you planning to go on a private jet?
Well, we'll see if they get banned or whatever.
So if you had an opportunity, someone said, Kai, I want to take you down to the south of France, got a private jet, you can come along, we'll serve you some champagne, you know, red carpet, none of this faffing waiting in a queue at Heathrow. Would you do it?
Well, you can understand the appeal because it's so convenient, but we're at a time where we need to be and
so you'd say no to that offer?
Yeah, I think our emissions budget needs to be spent on things like ambulances and, you know, essential things, not unnecessary luxurious emissions like private jets.
Luxurious emissions. OK. I've been on a private jet once or twice, just through politics. It's absolutely fabulous. I highly recommend doing it if you ever get the opportunity. What I don't understand here is that your demonstrations, and again, you know, you setting fire to your arm, what does you setting fire to your arm at a tennis match got to do with saving the planet and the future of mankind? Kumbaya, kumbaya.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. You know, we were sort of going in thinking that, you know, maybe you know, people would see it as a cry for help sort of thing. You know, we're desperately terrified about
I definitely saw it as a cry for help.
Yeah, and, you know, we did that, and, you know, everyone was just sort of, like, fine with it. You know, a young person sort of self-harming on a tennis court, and everyone was just fine with it. And it's just still sitting back in comfort thinking everything's fine when it's not.
Well, no, I'm very worried about your mental health, Kai, and I would like you to get help if you think that setting fire to yourself is ever an appropriate thing to do. If I was your mum, I would be absolutely devastated and worried about you.
And
I don't think anyone thought it was fine.
Well, the UK way of life sort of response to seeing, you know, the horrible truth is just sort of drinking more wine and watching more Netflix, and we can't let that comfort continue. Otherwise, we'll just get worse.
You can't let that comfort continue. What's it got to do with you whether someone wants to drink more wine and watch more Netflix and not be bothered about an eco-lunatic, in their view, setting fire to himself at a tennis match, or another one pouring human excrement on their memorial to a man who was regarded as a hero by the rest of the country?
But everybody knows.
What's it got to do with you?
We all sort of know that we're ruining my generation's future, but no one's doing anything about it.
Are we? How?
Well, I think my generation's future sort of relies on having food and things like that, and that's not really going to be available.
So we're not going to have food in the future.
Well, if you look at the predictions, we're looking at, you know, mass crop failure, and, you know, you can ration for a bit.
Who said that? Which scientist, which organisation has predicted that?
We've got a list of references on our website if you want to have a look at them.
You have a list of references. I'm not aware of any reputable organisation that has predicted that. There is no one, even the IPCC reports things. They don't predict any of this stuff. They predict that the economic growth might be a little bit lower than it would otherwise by the end of the century. I mean, one of my big worries is a generation, you know, your generations. You've been absolutely brainwashed into thinking that the planet is going to end. We're going to be on fire or underwater or starving or any combination of these things. There is no scientific basis for believing this, even if you completely accept that climate change is happening and it's man-made, and there is no reason to think that the world is going to be a terrible place to live and your generation is going to have a terrible life, other than if we pursue a net zero policy, which is going to impoverish people, particularly people your age who aren't privileged enough to be able to, you know, have Netflix or have the option of going on a private jet if you were invited, because they're living in underdeveloped countries in Africa and South America and Asia, crying out for fossil fuels to give them a future.
Yeah, it's quite a good point, and, you know, I think you've said a bit of time before that fossil fuels have, like, revolutionised our development. You know, we've got so much amazing things from it that we wouldn't have been able to do otherwise.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's fair enough that developing countries should sort of have a priority with that. You know, if they deserve, you know, better infrastructure. But we have no carbon budget left, and we need to start cutting. And the easiest way to do that is ending UK private jets.
Ending private jets. Well, look, Kai, if I ever get an opportunity to get on a private jet again, I'll give you a call. I've got your number now, and we'll see whether you want to come along or not. Really good to talk to you, Kai. Thank you very much. 9:53 is the time, actually 9:54. Really quick word, Peter Caldwell. It's not the most coherent argument, is it?
It's not. What I do love about Kai is that, like Sting, Madonna or Beyonce, he only has one name.
Absolutely. It's the only way. Thank you, Cardi P, sorry. Let's talk to MG. He hasn't even got, it's just initials, Mike Graham, who's back in the studio in London. It's genuinely, I've got to be honest with you, it's genuinely painful interviewing these eco-protesters, because it's such incoherent nonsense.
I could give him a second name if you wish, but I suspect it may not be allowed to go out. I don't know what's wrong with these people. What is wrong with them? I mean, he talks about somebody self-harming. They are mentally not very well, are they?
This is my thing. I don't even feel angry at them. I feel sorry for them. That we've got this whole generation of young people who think the world is a terrible place. As we keep saying, the best time ever to have been alive is today, apart from tomorrow, which is going to be even better.
Yeah.
Even with the energy crisis, everything going on, it's still a great time to be alive.
Also, he's clearly never been on a private jet, because once you have been on a private jet, you know it's the only way to fly. And if we could afford to do it more often, we would.